Hi, welcome to the Coffee with Lisa podcast. I believe that everyone in business has missing structures and endless possibilities to create new opportunities. The challenge is most don't know how to leverage the relationships for a win-win. I believe that your relationships will make the difference in the results you'll achieve, the impact you will have, and the speed in which you will make opportunities happen. I believe that you can see things through, but you often struggle to see through things. I'll make the invisible visible, the complex simple. Because of these beliefs, I created the Coffee with Lisa podcast and have invited the best experts to join me and share their experiences and knowledge with you so you can move faster and gain a competitive advantage in life and in business. Good morning. Thank you for joining me today at the Coffee with Lisa podcast live show. Today I have a special guest. The gentleman's name is Mike Kerr, and he is absolutely the funniest guy that I know. He's a public professional speaker. He's an author. He wrote The Humor Advantage, and he trains teams on how to bring humor to the workplace. I'm so excited to welcome Mike Kerr. Welcome, Mike, to the show.
Hey, good morning, Lisa. Great to be here. And no pressure with that introduction. Thank you.
You know what? I'm dying to know, because this is one question. We've known each other for a while now. And I've never asked you this, so I'm dying to know.
Yes.
If your wife was to describe you in 3 sentences, what would she say about you?
Do you want me to get her down here? Hey, honey.
Yeah.
In 3 sentences, she would describe me.
Or less.
Boy, geez, you're putting me on the spot here. You're putting her on the spot, actually. But so I get to speak for her. I think she would say that I am a charming, wonderful, incredibly sexy human being that is just irreplaceable. Many words would come to mind, I think.
I know that you've been married for 20 some years. I don't think that's what she'd say.
She would say sometimes I'm a pain in the ass and difficult to live with, and I'm impatient and I'm high maintenance sometimes, but I'm a lot of fun.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm like a golden retriever puppy, Lisa, really, in many ways. I'm cute, adorable, but a pain in the butt.
Oh, very good. Well, people call me Pitbull. So I don't know. I think I'd eat you for lunch.
You would not. Hey, in fact, look what I just got in the mail. How cool is this? Yesterday.
Aww.
That's you. There you are here and there. Isn't that awesome? Look at that. Thank you card. So thank you for the thank you card. That's so cool.
You're welcome. Well, I'm a huge believer in thank you cards, and we don't get enough of them in the mail. All we get is, we used to get bills. We don't even get that anymore.
I'm getting nothing in the mail. I think they've forgotten us.
Yeah, I think so too. So I want to ask you something. What is the funniest story that we wouldn't know necessarily about you?
About me?
Mm-hmm.
One of the funniest things that has happened, I think, in my life, way back in a former lifetime, I was a park naturalist working in beautiful Banff National Park, our flagship national park here in Canada. And I got called upon, I think I drew the shortest straw, to play Boomer the Beaver, the Parks Canada mascot. This huge, hulking, hot costume. If any of you have played a mascot out there, you know what this is like. You can't breathe. You can hardly see anything. It was the hottest day of the summer, coincidentally. And I'm already in this self-contained sauna unit, sweating like buckets. And I had to go to this ceremonial event at a boy Cubs jamboree. So there were like thousands of these cubs in this field. I was supposed to be there for about 10 minutes, ceremonial wave. I'm not allowed to speak as Boomer the Beaver, through a series of events that I will not get into because it's too long to explain the entire story. It was something you would just see on a sitcom, this comedic mishaps. I end up having what can only be described as a panic attack in this giant costume. So all I can think to do is, because now we're going on to hour 2 that I'm in there in the mid-afternoon sun. I'm ready to pass out inside this giant beaver outfit. So I turned and I ran from these children. Like I broke through the crowd like this with my giant beaver paws. Kids were screaming, kids were crying. I knocked over a few of them by accident because I'm in this big costume. My beaver tail is going flap, 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 flap behind me. I'm running for my life. And of course, they start running after me. And I hear this kid scream out, he's going back to his home. So they chase me like this scene out of some cheesy summer camp movie. I run across this field as fast as I could with my big clunky feet and beaver tail. I get to this road, and honest to goodness, I stop these RVs in their tracks in this giant beaver costume so that I can cross the road and go into the forest. And now I'm running through trees, crashing through branches, totally out of breath, ready to collapse, which I think I eventually did after finally escaping these crazy children.
How old were you?
How old was I? I was about 21, I guess, 22. Oh yes.
Did that teach you? Don't wear a beaver suit again?
I've never worn a beaver costume again. I remember being at a convention with park naturalists, with park interpreters, and we were at the bar one night, and we actually started sharing horror stories of being in mascot outfits. And it was, we were crying, laughing so hard, everybody sharing their stories. I still remember one person, I'm trying to remember his name. He was a Saskatoon berry. I think he was from the city of Saskatoon, and he had a giant Saskatoon costume, and he got bullied. He got chased by a gang, like even worse than my story. These were at least kids, 10-year-old kids. He got actually chased and beat up by a gang in a Saskatoon berry costume.
My God. Well, I'm from, I grew up in Saskatchewan, and I can't imagine any of us fellow Saskatchewanites beating up a Saskatoon.
No, that doesn't sound very Saskatchewan-like.
It's not very nice.
No, I'm surprised. You Saskatchewan people, you have some explaining to do.
We do. I mean, we wear watermelons on our head. We wear bunny hugs. We don't wear hoodies. I mean, we're just a unique group of people.
You are. You're awesome. Everybody loves Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is like the golden retriever of provinces in Canada.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and I always say I think there's more Saskatchewanites in Alberta than there is in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
But okay, so that's a funny story about you. But now I want to know the funniest story that's happened to one of your clients. But more importantly, how did that humor, that experience actually alter the results of that organization? What was the benefits moving forward?
Well, as I explain in my fabulous book, The Humor Advantage, there are literally dozens of benefits of injecting a little humor, fun, levity into a workplace culture, as long as you get your culture right. And really, I stress the importance of culture. But Lisa, I've got a database of over 1,000 examples of businesses that do something a little goofy, a little silly, a little fun to stand out from the herd, to be heard with their business. So I'll share a few examples very quickly, if that's okay. Some of them are just very, very simple, small little things. I remember phoning up Shutterfly, the online photo web sharing site, and I had a complaint, so I was a little upset with them, but that complaint kind of dissipated because I got their usual automated voicemail response with all those pain in the butt options, but then they gave me this rather delightful option. If you want to hear all these options again, but in pirate, press 9. Well, who would not want to hear these in pirate? Of course I wanted to hear it in pirate. So I pressed 9. There was a pirate. Matey, if you think your package has been lost at high seas, press number 3. Like, how cool is that? I know, right? So simple, so goofy. I put a smile on my face. So how could I stay mad at these guys, right? Because they made me smile. So sometimes they're just simple little things like that. But I've got other stories where you really can see the dramatic impact in their overall business. There's a donut shop, for example, in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, that is home supposedly to the largest chocolate donut in the United States.
Not Dunkin' Donuts, is it by chance?
No. This is supposedly, though, home to the largest chocolate donut. And remember, Lisa, this is the US we're talking about. So we can only imagine how big this chocolate donut probably is, right? So they
go big or go home.
Exactly. So they created what they called the Big Chocolate Honker. So then they decided we need a ritual every time somebody orders this. So they created this goofy ritual, which is just, I love it. Every time somebody orders the Big Chocolate Honker, they honk an old-fashioned horn, which sends a signal out to all the seniors who hang out in their donut shop, who have been trained so that when the seniors hear the donut shop, in unison, all of the seniors go, honk, 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 honk. They throw up their arms like that and honk, right? Like, how stupid is that? Now you might think, okay, well, that's pretty stupid. Is that really going to make an impact in their business? Well, as it turns out, it may have actually saved this Ma and Pa donut shop. They were in serious difficulty until they started doing this ritual, and they ended up getting free publicity from all the surrounding states, news crews coming in to film the stupid little ritual. It put them on the map, and I think it created a domino effect within their small culture to just kind of free them up to be more creative, to try some new wild things. So sometimes the power of just those simple little, what seem to be goofy ideas on the surface, really can have a domino effect. Another one of my favorite examples here in Canada is Argus Industries in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And they have this wonderful mantra that I think every business should embrace. And the mantra is simply this: work is hard enough as it is without making it any harder. So let's work hard. Let's set ambitious goals for ourselves. But hey, let's have a little bit of fun while we're working hard, and maybe we'll be even more successful. Well, Argus Industries takes that value very seriously. They have all sorts of contests. They connect with family members of employees. They have all sorts of games and rituals and traditions and fun in their meetings. And one of the craziest rituals they do, I love this, starting on December 1st, an employee shows up at work dressed in a gorilla costume, and he hides somewhere in their manufacturing plant or their front office, waiting to scare the bejesus out of a fellow coworker, while another coworker secretly videotapes the transaction of mostly these big, burly, blue-collar guys going, "Ah!" screaming their heads off. And then they create a montage video that they show at their year-end party, and it's become a big part of their culture. Now, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Argus Industries is phenomenally successful. They have virtually a 0% employee turnover rate over the last 10 years, which is unheard of.
That's incredible.
It's incredible, right? But here's the deal. They do not have a 0% employee turnover rate and phenomenal success and phenomenal growth because a gorilla shows up on December 1st. They have that great track record because they get that culture is the key driver of success, and they focus intentionally on building a positive culture. But one of those important elements is to make sure that they inject as much fun into the workplace as they can, legally.
Well, legally. I'm still thinking about these big burly guys, blue collar men squealing like little girls because they get so scared. I mean, I think that's hilarious.
It is. It's so funny, and seeing some of the video footage is hilarious. And the president of Argus, he was telling me about this when he first told me about it. He said, Mike, what's so awesome about this is starting on December 1st, when this ritual kicks in, all of the employees come into work with a certain amount of fear and trepidation, exactly where we want them.
Well, and I would think that they would, if I was an employee, I'd start thinking about retaliation ways. Gorilla, right? Like, yes. Okay, how am I going to get the gorilla? Because the gorilla's, how am I going to outwit?
That's right. Out-gorilla.
Forget what the one is.
Out-gorilla the gorilla. Well, and you reminded me of a funny side story with this too. Is they were telling me about how one of their I think a manager had a heart attack, and so they were a little worried about still doing the gorilla thing on him. So they would give him a warning before the gorilla was gonna. So somebody would knock at his door and say, "A gorilla's just gonna come in right now, just because we don't want."
That would be the downside. Is somebody actually had a heart attack?
Oh, I know, right? Yeah,
that's health and safety would not be happy over that one.
No, it's all fun and games until a gorilla causes a 911 call.
Or the gorilla has a heart attack themselves for being in a suit.
Yes. Or gets chased by a Cub Scout troop. Yes.
Or by a gang.
Or a gang, yes. I think, Lisa, I think there's actually a book out there of mascot horror stories, right? Because there are so many stories. Yeah.
Oh, I can only imagine. You know what? I always think about, you're driving by and you see the Pizza 73 guy standing outside, like waving in the dead of heat. And you think, oh my God, you couldn't pay me enough to do that.
No, those are undervalued heroes in our society, ladies and gentlemen. And, yes.
Absolutely. So, Mike, you talked a little bit about the company, really infiltrating not only humor, but having a very strong culture of leadership. And so, what are some ways that organization, besides humor, are doing it right? Like techniques or tips that people can actually apply if they're listening to this today, so that when we get back to work and we have teams in our team environment, what are some of those things that they can incorporate?
Yeah, and I research companies all over the world that have really strong rocking cultures. And the first thing they get right, I think, is just recognizing the importance of culture. There's one thing to know that culture matters. It's a whole other thing to actually do something about it and be intentional about it. You can't fake your culture. You can't buy it at IKEA. Even if you did, you wouldn't understand the instructions. So you have to be intentional about building your culture. And that's what these great companies get. They invest relentlessly in their hiring and onboarding practices and training to make sure they have a culture fit, to make sure they hire people who are going to grow and strengthen their culture and move it into the direction that they want. They invest relentlessly in making sure that their values mean something. So at Argus Industries, they're very, very clear about that. FHA Safety Code, a company I spent some time with in Copenhagen, Denmark, they transformed their culture in the matter of 6 months by doing this very simple exercise. They recognize that when we talk about values, we have to remember those sayings: actions speak louder than words, and talk is cheap. One of the things that creates Dilbert cartoons, I believe, is the disconnect between what companies, what leaders are saying about their businesses and workplaces and what people are actually experiencing on the ground. So great leaders that are intentional about their culture have to make sure they're translating those cultures, those values, living them out loud, modeling them, and holding people accountable, not just treating them like slogans or cheesy sayings, but they are actual lines in the sand. So they have to recognize employees who are living up to their values and hold employees accountable. So AFHA Safety Code, they did this dirt simple exercise that anybody out there could do. They came up with 4 new values to drive their organization. And then all they did was this kind of what I'd call a value blitz. 1 value per week. They challenged everybody in their company to live that value in an outrageously loud way. And they said to everybody, okay, you're going to put the needle way over here probably. Maybe we won't be able to sustain it over here in the long run, but for a week, let's just see what we could do for a week to sort of embrace this value, to model it, to show everybody what is actually doable where this value is concerned. Then week 2, value 2, week 3, value 3, they kept cycling through them. After 6 months, every single employee, and how powerful is this, agreed with the statement, I work for a brand new company, because they brought those values to life. They didn't pay just lip service to them, right? I mean, as I always joke, look at your values, look at your list of values. Who is going to disagree with those suckers, right? Like a value like teamwork. Ask your teammates who disagree. Is there anyone here who disagrees with being a teammate? Or do you think anybody, when they get hired for a job, is going to say during the job interview, I want you to know I'm not a team player. I've got some anger issues. Or safe work environment. Yeah, not for me. I'm a bit of a daredevil, right? So that is so much of it. And then the other big thing that, of course, any leader in any company has to get, especially right now. But before I leave that thought, Lisa, on the values, I do want to mention this, though. In terms of our current circumstance, this is when your values really, really matter, when they really count, right? Because it's easy to live our values out loud when times are good. Let's face it, right? When we're cruising, everything is puppies and rainbows. It's really easy. This is when your values get tested, and this is when your customers, your clients, your employees are watching your behaviors to make sure you are now especially living up to your values. So,
absolutely. And this is in times of crisis, or in times of when leaders have to step up to the plate and really be leaders. This is when you decide whether you keep your clients or you don't keep your clients. Because when it comes back handfold, I truly believe those actions that you take will speak louder than anybody else's actions or advertising or anything that they're doing currently or in the future.
Absolutely. It will pay off in spades down the road. I just read there was a survey in Fast Company yesterday in an article talking about the high percentage, I forget what the exact number was, but it was something in the 88% or something, of employees who said that based on how companies will treat their employees through this crisis, that will determine whether they are employer of choice in the future. And we know from studies from other catastrophic events, the 2008 financial crisis, or going back to 9/11, that those companies that had the strongest cultures rebounded far quicker than other companies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How much, before we get to your second point, how much time do you believe that the average leader actually spends on values versus how much time should they be spending on value identification?
I suspect the average leader should spend far more time on their values than they actually do.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes in my workshops with senior leaders, I will challenge them to even list their values, and they don't even know what they are at the senior leadership level. So they don't even know what they are, let alone what they really mean or how they translate into specific behaviors and attitudes. So now here's the deal, right? It's not like you can check off your values on a to-do list, right?
No.
You take a value like trust. So you're not going to say, yeah, trust. I'm gonna pencil that in for Thursday at 9:30 and get that trust off my right. So it has to be ingrained in our behaviors day in and day out, 24/7. How we're leading, how we're communicating. But to give a sense to, or to try and answer your question, I know, for example, the Human Capital Institute suggests that a leader should spend 70% of their time on culture. And now, that part of that obviously is values, but 70% of their time should be on culture development and talent development in an organization. 70%. So it has to be a substantial commitment, because we know culture is your number one competitive advantage. It affects everything you do, and it is your number one competitive advantage that you can control.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is if you really aren't instilling, and I believe actions speak louder than words. I know you 100% believe that. Like, if you really truly don't live to your own values, how do you expect your team? How do you expect your clients? It's not just about your teams, it's your clients. We want to motivate our clients and lift our clients up. I don't care if you're selling toilet seats or if you are in a service-based industry. So if you really truly don't understand what your values are, how can you inspire others to follow your vision and your lead?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. You've got to be living them out loud. Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what's really cool? I love these stories where I will interview CEOs, presidents of companies, and they'll often tell me how they are intentionally visible when it comes to their values. They will put themselves in a position, in other words, where they are seen living their values out loud. So let me give you a dirt simple example. Probably 3 different times, which is quite substantial when you think about it. Yeah. When I've gone in to interview a senior leader, that senior leader has been out in the parking lot picking up garbage. And I remember the first time encountering a leader, and I kind of made a joke, right? I said, don't you have people who can do this for you, right? And he laughed, of course, and he said, well, yeah, of course, but I want to make sure everyone, when they walk through this parking lot, is picking up their garbage, because it reflects on our image. And I want to be seen doing it so that everybody gets the message. It's not beneath them to do this. It is everyone's responsibility to do this. It is all of our jobs to do this. And so they will purposely, even doing simple things. I was talking to one CEO, and he told me how he will intentionally go down to the factory floor and roll up his sleeves to help people fix a piece of equipment or help change something, right? Get his hands literally dirty to be seen living important values, or stepping up and doing something outrageous with a customer to model outrageous customer service.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born and raised, and we talked a little bit about Saskatchewan, and my dad always said to me, Lisa, if you can't do it, why would you expect anyone else to do it for you?
Right, exactly.
And that's really the reality of it, is if I want you to go pick up garbage, then I better damn well go out there and pick up the garbage too.
Exactly. Yes.
100%. So, yes, exactly.
Yes.
The pit bull. Okay, so what else can leaders really think about to really instill their values and start leading by example and their actions? And think about, I think that authenticity is a value.
Oh, totally agree. Totally. Authenticity is related to so much. It's related to trust. It's hard to trust people when we don't think they're being the real deal, right? When they're wearing one of those fake professional masks, when they're speaking in this artificial language with all these buzzwords and acronyms, or who's this person? Authenticity is linked to effective leadership, to trust. It is linked to humor. That's one of the other reasons why I love humor as a value, why I think it's important at a leadership level, is because it helps to humanize leaders and helps them be more real and authentic. When you laugh at yourself, when you laugh at the mistakes you make, those bloopers you do, it keeps you real and humble and human. It's about taking yourself lightly, not necessarily your job lightly. There's a world of difference between those things. So I think authenticity is absolutely important. I think it's hard in meetings to have great, real, honest debate and conversations, and certainly be creative if people are not authentic either. If we don't allow people to just express themselves with their own authentic voice, it is stifling. It is demoralizing. You waste a lot of energy putting on these fake personas. I wrote about this a few weeks ago, this survey I came across that suggested that 82% of people have faked at one time or another being happy at work. 82%. I mean, that's crazy. We want to make sure people can bring their real, authentic selves to work. It is absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are some ways, you talked a little bit about meetings, because my God, we have all been in them, where you literally want to cut your throat because you're dying of boredom, and you can think of 1,000 other things that you could be doing with your time at that specific moment. So how do you interject a little bit of life into the meetings? What are some of your tips and techniques?
I'm so with you, Lisa. I talk to so many people who talk about how meetings are just sucking the life out of them, as soul-sucking experiences, right? To me, meetings are so important. They are another key. I mean, communication is another key thing, right? We have to focus on as effective leaders and culture builders and bringing our values to life. Communication is everything, and everything is communication. And I'm a huge believer that meetings should be something we look forward to at work. Where else do you get to debate passionately and share ideas and find out what's going on? Our meetings should both reflect our culture that we want in a business, and they should help create the desired culture. They are key moments for you to build your culture. So you have to get your meetings right, because they are sucking the life out of too many people. And there are so many ways that you can inject a little energy and fun into your meetings as well. In fact, a Scientific America study, Lisa, found that the most effective meetings were those meetings that had high levels of fun and energy in them, because people, again, were more honest. There was better flow of conversation. People were more real. People were more creative, because ha plus ha equals aha. So you've got to make sure you're injecting some fun, whether it's putting in a humor break in the middle of your meeting to share some fun humor, opening your meeting with a fun, simple icebreaker. It could be a weird question. It could be just a fun go around the room. How's everyone doing on a scale of 1 to 10? You can do all these things with your virtual meetings too. Here's what I did on a virtual meeting recently that I was on. We all drew, as just a fun little meeting icebreaker, we all drew self-portraits of ourselves. So this is me. This is my pic. This looks pretty good, I think, right? Look at that. I got the.
I decide who has more hair.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's got the hairstyle, I think, pretty good. So, opening up to set the tone, I think, is so important with a fun icebreaker. Coming up with your alter ego name that you'll use for the meeting. One thing I'm a huge fan of for virtual meetings is creating a drinking game. Now, assuming, depending on the time of day, you're probably just drinking coffee or tea like Lisa and I, or water, but you can still have a drinking game. So you list a bunch of things, like every time somebody says, "You're on mute," Bob, you're on mute. Everybody has to take a drink. Every time somebody's dog barks in the background, everyone takes a drink. Every time toddler interrupts the meeting, you take a drink. You can create your own list, but it's a great way to keep the energy up. One of my clients did this, and I've done this in a couple meetings, where they did a third person meeting. Now, by this, I mean, and this is a ritual that some of my clients do, and I'm a huge fan of rituals and traditions to inject a little fun into teams. So you can do this in meetings, a third-person meeting where everybody refers to themselves, but in the third person. So Mike likes this idea. Hey, Mike has an idea, right? It's like, it's just so stupid. How could you not smile when everybody's talking about themselves in the third person?
Well, then nobody's thinking about the 1,000 other things that they could be doing because they're too busy giggling.
That's right. And fun props even in your meetings, right? You know, have a goofy hat meeting, right? Where everybody wears a goofy hat for your meeting. Why not? Or some fun noisemakers. These are awesome. I use these in a lot of my virtual meetings. So if somebody needs a little thinking time, or if something weird happens.
I like that one. I was recently on a podcast, and the gentleman's name was Ryan Foland, and he had a buzzer. So every time that I said something wrong, he'd go like, "Nee, nee."
See, that's awesome. Oh,
podcast was to see how many times did I get "nee" in the podcast. Luckily, I only got 2. But he said in some podcasts that he's done, it was like "nee, nee, nee, nee."
That's hilarious. See that?
It added a little bit of interactivity to the podcast, right?
And
humor, and it created a really safe place, because this podcast was a little bit unique. It was about putting me in the hot seat, and you know, every time that I answered something wrong, he'd knee, right? And but it allowed it. But what it did, though, is it created a really safe environment for me to be wrong.
Yeah,
and that's really important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it.
Awesome.
Turned it into a game show.
Exactly. Now, it wasn't Ellen's game show, but it was definitely fun.
It sounds fun.
Anyways, well, we're closing up to the time here, and what I wanted to know is 2 things. One, you have a leadership online course that really walks leaders through how to
build, how to create a more inspiring, service-focused, rocking culture that drives outrageous results. So it's
really is important. I mean, we're not talking about just minuscule results. We're talking about, you've been working with teams for a lot of years, and this perfection that you've done, this system, this process, really gets outrageous results, not just little results.
Yeah, and we know from so much research, Lisa, out there, that companies, again, that invest in their culture, that get serious about it, that invest in training. I'll give you just one of dozens and dozens and dozens of studies I could cite, a Harvard Business School study that found that how a business hires, trains, and treats its employees, accounts for anywhere from 30% to 300% growth over their competitors. I'll take the 30% growth number any day of the week. So we know that there are massive results that happen when organizations, whether they're small or large, no matter what business you're in, when you invest in your culture, it drives results. It improves your customer service, improves your sales, reduce employee turnover rates substantially, reduce employee absenteeism rates, turns even long-term cynical employees into raving fans for your organization. It affects everything you do.
Absolutely. Well, and like the company we talked about, I mean, 100% retention rate, that's like very, very hard to do. First of all, let's be clear. It's not just because they added humor into their workplace, or, you know, it is very hard, and it is a real commitment to the actions that you take every single day as a leader.
Absolutely. And one of the things, just to tie the humor back to the culture again, that I always stress is there's a chicken and egg relationship. So humor can help you with, I honestly believe it's an important part of building a strong culture, but just as important, it reflects a strong culture. When you're doing all the things right that you should be doing to build a great human first, people first culture, then it becomes easy for that humor to just happen naturally, organically. It becomes easy for everyone to bring their sense of humor along for the ride.
And you might figure out what kind of mascot you need at the same time.
Yeah, there you go. just don't get beat up in your mascot outfit.
Well, I always close my shows, Mike, with this one question. So I will ask you and give you a second to think about it. If you had to give your younger 20-some-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
I assume you mean besides don't put on the beaver costume. You mean besides that? What would I get? What would I give my? I would say to. I would say that it took me way longer than it should have to be confident in my own skin. I was always a pretty authentic guy, pretty funny guy, good sense of humor, but sometimes just lacking that confidence to find my true voice consistently. And I think that would probably be the number one thing I would tell younger Mikey, who looked a little more like this, perhaps.
That's fantastic. And I never really, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I think that's when, our frequency of greatness comes out in us, when we really have to think about, what would we tell our younger self? What would we tell children? What would we tell, because the 20-some-year-olds, let's face it, they're going to be running the world while we're sitting back in our armchairs and maybe running marathons.
In our minds, or maybe just spitballing here, maybe drinking a gin and tonic on the porch.
Oh, well, for me it'd be I love gin and tonic, but for me it'd be a whiskey all day long.
For that.
Well, thank you, Mike, for joining us today on the Coffee with Lisa podcast and having a cup of coffee with me. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and please stay healthy in these times.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. It was so great to be here. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep finding the funny in these challenging times.
Absolutely. Thank you.